late 1880s, few residents of the small farming town of Watseka, Illinois, would have guessed they were about to witness one of the era's most famous cases of possession. In the height of the spiritualism movement, a few may have believed that the dead could communicate with the living, but for the most part, the preachers were against the notion. But still, nobody was prepared for the strange events when a seemingly possessed girl would come to be known as the Watseka Wonder. Mary Lurancy Vennum was born in 1864 to Thomas and his wife Lorinda. The Vennums were a close family, but by July 4th, 1877, the 13-year-old had began behaving strangely. At first, she said she merely felt dizzy and nauseous, but Lurancy, or Rancy, as she liked to be called, eventually collapsed and fell into a catatonic sleep. This spell lasted 5 hours. Although she awoke feeling restored, she developed a series of fainting spells that increased with duration and intensity. During these curious spells, Rancy's body became rigid and she often fell to the ground. She began to speak, even while sleeping. She spoke of angels, demons, and made her Christian parents blush. She spoke of her dead siblings and other spirits of the dead. At times, the dreams were even darker. She spoke of being chased by untoward spirits she could hear coming. Soon, this became overwhelming, as Rancy experienced these spells up to 8 hours a day, and everybody was affected. She revealed secrets about the neighbors, and her voice changed. She spoke in other languages and various accents in striking detail. Upon waking, though, she had no recollection of the events. Reluctantly, word spread, and spiritualists wanted to visit. They considered Lurancy Vennum's unique spells to be a sign of wondrous powers. Meanwhile, the girl's parents watched helplessly as their daughter's symptoms worsened. Her speech became garbled, and her whole personality began to change. The concerned parents called in numerous physicians. One imaginative doctor claimed it to be a state of cataleptic trance due to the sting of an unknown insect. Discussion of stress, personal crisis, and overwork at school came under scrutiny. Finally, one doctor diagnosed her with mental illness and recommended Rancy to be committed to the state insane asylum in Peoria, Illinois. Over the holiday season of 1877, the Vennums prepared to send their precious daughter to the asylum. However, after the new year rolled around in 1878, the town founder, Asa Roff, intervened in their decision. Mr. Roff was also a spiritualist. He explained that the asylum would only make Lurancy's problems worse, though. He spoke from experience, as his own young daughter had been committed to no avail. She had died while in confinement in such an institution. Mary Roff was born in 1846. She began exhibiting fits at just 6 months old. This was similar to Lurancy. As she got older, they increased in severity, with Mary hearing voices telling her to do impossible things. She, too, spoke in the voices of other people, and spoke of other worlds. The weight of her spells soon took their toll, and Mary became violent, developing an obsession with cutting herself with knives or a razor. At 19, Mary Roff was found in a pool of her own blood from self-inflicted wounds and transported to the state asylum. She received no mercy there. So-called therapy consisted of torture, like the water cure. A mentally ill patient was unceremoniously dunked first in icy water, followed by scalding water. Mary was wrapped so tightly after this in wet sheets, as was protocol. Her circulation was cut off, and she died. The Venoms were so affected by Roff's tale of his own daughter's suffering that they couldn't bear the thought of sending her away. They decided to rehabilitate her at home in any way possible. One morning in February, Lurancy rose from her bed and went into the kitchen where her mother was preparing breakfast. Rancy looked around strangely, her eyes darting. It was as if she was trying to discover who she was. She then says to her mother,
"Good morning, madam. Why am I here? Why didn't I sleep at home?"
Julia burst out laughing and tells her to stop playing games and eat her breakfast. Lurancy stiffens up and says her name isn't Lurancy, but
It's Mary.
Still thinking her daughter is play acting, Mom joins in, pours her milk, and says,
"Okay then, Mary."
Lurancy doesn't move. Her eyes are fixed and shiny, confused.
What's the matter, Lurancy? Not Lurancy, madam. My name is Mary Roff, and I would like to go back home now.
Julia became angry now. She didn't take too kindly for anybody joking about the deceased.
I forbid you to tell such stupid stories. We shan't laugh about certain things. You know we shouldn't. Mary Roff has been gone 13 years, and you didn't know her.
Rancy stood up from her chair and spoke to Julia.
"Oh, you must remember me, Mrs. Vennum. You met me once in town. You had a white straw hat on, and I had a big bow in my hair that come untied. You tied it for me."
Overwhelmed, Julia took a seat. All this is true. She did meet young Mary Roff and retied the child's bow. How could Lurancy know such mundane details? Since Mary's death, the Roffs have been intent on communicating with her. With the Venom's permission, Mr. Roff called in another spiritualist, Dr. E. Winchester Stevens. Begrudgingly, Tom and Julia allowed Rancy to become mesmerized for a demonstration. She managed to invoke two spirits that night. One of a cantankerous old woman, and the other of a Watseka man who had recently committed suicide. After some while, Rancy became very frustrated and felt drained. After tossing her arms up, she collapsed, until a gentler spirit was allowed to take possession of her body. It was Mary Roff, and she had a message. Mary explained to all present that Lurancy was very ill and required some time away with the angels. There she could be cured while Mary spent time with her family again. The Roffs were ecstatic with this news and felt their daughter had been returned to them. Lurancy seemed to know everything Mary had and was immediately treated like beloved family. Thomas and Lorinda kept their distance. If Rancy was now their daughter, where did theirs go? Mary, or Lurancy, finally asked when she might spend at least 3 months with the Roff family, and her parents hesitantly agreed. From February 10th to May 21st, 1878, the Vennums tried to visit regularly and watch and wondered how her health improved. Unfortunately, their daughter barely knew them now. For the Roffs, Mary's return was a miracle. The girl demonstrated an acute knowledge, not just of Mary herself, but of the afterlife.
So let me catch you. So let me catch you slipping by.
On the way to the Roffs' home, she noticed they passed by the home she always knew as her own. It turns out they had left that house when Mary died. Upon arrival at their new home, Mary ran to play her favorite songs on the piano. Lurancy was very limited in musical skills, and the repertoire tonight was fabulous. She spoke of fond memories, as well as times when the Roffs had tried to summon her through mediums and seances. Uncomfortably, she even remembered her own funeral and burial. The returned girl mentioned the wounds she cut on her arm, touching the same place on Lurancy's limb and noting, "This is not the arm. That one is in the ground." During the long visit, Lurancy continued to prove she was now the Roff's dead daughter.
By the way, Mommy, have you kept the little box of letters that I received from my friends shortly before and after my death?
With tears rolling down her cheeks, Mrs. Roff managed to answer that yes, she has kept the little box of letters.
Don't cry, Mommy, because I'm here now.
Her presence in this way seemed unbelievable. Another day, Lurancy came downstairs, carrying Mary's favorite doll, Blondie. It had been stored in the attic with her things since Mary died, but somehow she had found it. Near the fireplace one night, Lurancy suddenly takes on a serious air.
I'm most happy to have found you again, but I'll not stay very long with you. In May, I will have to leave you again. That's why until then, We must love each other a lot and be very happy.
In April, the Roffs began referring to Mary in the present tense again, and pushed aside her cryptic message about leaving them. But that day did come in May. Mary became despondent. She spent special time with each family member and held them as she wept with grief. On May 21st, Mary left the Roffs and Lurancy returned, both to life and the Vennum's household. With her health completely restored, she soon wed an eligible bachelor named George Benning and moved to another town to live out her new life. Some may say, thanks to the intervention of a deceased Mary Roff. In the years that followed, Lurancy would visit the Roffs occasionally and would allow them to speak with their daughter by way of seances. The Roff family never stopped believing in the spirit of Mary from the other side. Some psychologists believe this was just a case of hysterical impersonation, even though Mary and Lurancy never knew each other. In fact, Lurancy was about a year old when Mary died. Whatever you believe, the Watseka Wonder is America's first full, well-documented case of its kind. If not a case of true spiritual possession, then at least the tale of one young woman's sacrifice to help another transform from a troubled teenager into a healthy adult. Lurancy Vennum Benning became the mother to 11 children and never experienced the troubling spells again after her return. Her memory of the experiences remained vague, as if she was queerly just out of herself. After a long life, Mrs. Benning died in 1952. She was 88 years old and left many descendants to carry on her legacy. She is buried in California.